I went short.
Hi, I'm Rob Moore. I'm the Digital Market Manager at Roadshow Films. I should probably start by saying thanks. I should probably also add that this is terrifying. Last time I was here there were maybe 20, 30 people. It's a slightly bigger crowd today. So I'd appreciate your patience with me. So today I want to talk to you about a topic called gamification. And the reason why I've chosen this is that I wanted to choose something that I thought would be fun to kind of, I guess, push my own knowledge boundaries and not really tackle stuff that I was overly familiar with. So I'm kind of new to this myself as well. So if you've got any questions or you want to challenge any of the points I make, please feel free to do so. But maybe afterwards, in case you make me look a bit stupid. So I'd like to ask, is this a word that anyone in the room is familiar with? You might have also come across it under the guise of utilitainment, but I refuse to use that because that's a stupid word. So I saw a couple of hands, but okay, so good. So maybe I'm sharing stuff that you guys is new to you too, so we can all learn together, and brilliant. So usually a good place to start in these situations is a definition, and the definition of gamification, as given by the guys who wrote the book, is the process of using game thinking, game mechanics to engage audiences and solve problems. There might be a big red flashing light above many of your heads already at the word engagement. We're all kind of trained to fear that word because it's so overused and out of context so often. But I think in this context, by imbuing your thinking and your marketing and media behaviour with gamification, there's something really powerful in there. And that is that the definition of engagement in this context revolves entirely around user experience. So creating narrative, pathways, and the user experience that is truly engaging because you're drawing them into your world. Really standard game mechanics will include things like challenges, tasks, rewards, leveling up, leaderboards, competition versus your peers and your friends. And I think that that's an incredibly powerful hook in which to draw people into your world. So I'd like to give one example. It's the wrong example. I should have used Nike Plus, but bear with me. We'll go with Tipex. So Tipex is a brand that I think could quite confidently say exists in a fairly low interest category. It's white out. It's not really the most interesting of products. And yet, by bringing gamification into the way that they've brought their offering to market, they've done it in a really interesting way. I mean, I think you'd all agree this is probably one of the most successful campaigns of last year. And the game mechanic that they used is really one of the most basic, and that's a reward loop. This is an execution we've seen many times before. What it amounts to really is a choose-your-own-adventure story. But the reward loop, the way that users are rewarded and lured into that world is incredibly powerful because it's executed in such a good way. So you go into the world, you choose your verb, usually something profane, if you guys are anything like me when you kick off, and then you dirty minds, and then you very rarely just go in and choose one verb. The man kisses the bear, shoots the bear, does all kinds of stuff with the bear, but you do it more than once. And so, therefore, you're drawn into that world, and it's a much richer, more rewarding experience as a consequence. That's a great example of gamification in action. It's all well and good, but how does this relate to the future of digital advertising? Well, it's my belief, and actually this is shared by a number of bodies within the industry. If you look up any of the TED global conferences, this guy called Seth Priebatsch, who's CEO of a business called Scavenger, he will talk about this quite passionately as well. And that's that in the last 10 years, we've gone about building our social framework. The framework in which we connect with, we being consumers, not advertisers at the moment for now. So where we connect with each other, we collaborate, we share ideas, and we create our world around us. And implicit in that is that advertisers have a permission to be there. So people indicate that they like us, they talk about us, they review us, sometimes positively if we're lucky. And so therefore we have a right to be there, if you can use it well. I believe that this coming decade will be where we set the game framework in place. And the differentiation here is super important. And if you take nothing else with you today, I want you to think about this, which is the proliferation of social media gave us permission to exist in the consumer's world. And I'm going to put it out there that the proliferation of game thinking will give consumers a reason to exist in ours. And I'm sure you can immediately see why the latter is a preferable outcome for us. Consumers coming to us and wanting to exist in our world and talk to us about what we're doing. Of course, if you disagree, please leave now. So today I'm not going to talk about the nuts and bolts of what game thinking really is. The correct way to set up a leaderboard, whether you should, how your point system works and experience points, all of that stuff that's really implementational. I'm going to give you a couple of things here, which I think you can take away with you that should hopefully demonstrate why including game thinking in your market and media thinking is going to be a really powerful thing for you in the coming, well, I think now, but certainly in the next few years. So there are 4 games here. Do you recognise some, all, none? A little show of hands, perhaps. Make sure I'm not. Good. You digital professionals, you. Thank you. So I'm going to pick on a couple of examples. And this is really important. So in the bottom left, I dare say a media conference in Australia, there must be a few poms in the house. Yeah? No show of hands, but giggles give it away. So, bottom left is a game called Championship Manager. If you're English and male, you know this game. If you're female, I dare say you've lost a boyfriend to it at some point. For the Australians, it is a football game, soccer, and if you ask any of the English females, they will tell you it is a game of spreadsheets. It's dull as dishwater. Ask any of the men, they will tell you it is the most exciting football experience in the history of football. And they're both right. In the top, also left, is a game called Flight Control, which was one of the first games on the iPhone to really succeed on a big scale. And this is really interesting, and this is why this gamification thinking is so powerful. If someone said to you in the street, air traffic control, I dare say your reaction would be suicide, stress, I wouldn't take that job for all the tea in China. And yet, we think it's the most fun game ever. So many people download it. I don't have the exact number, I'm not going to make one up and pretend, but it was top of the charts for ages. And the point is that fun, the act of having fun is absolutely not the same thing as the theme of the thing that is fun. Does that make sense? Sounds clever though, right? So, okay, so top right hand corner, a game called Trauma Centre. You are an A&E doctor, people rush into you, they all die and you have to stitch them up, or they die and it's your fault. Is that fun? It's fun. But the theme of it's terrifying. Yeah, so do you get that distinction? So you go, right, great, it's funny, computer games, so what? Well, the so what is that this tenet here, the thing about that fun is not the same as the theme of the thing that is fun, is that it completely democratises our access to consumers as advertisers. Because, my friends, if we can make air traffic control fun, anything, and I mean anything, can be fun. The second point I want to make today is that game thinking works really, really well in the context of loyalty and how your patrons, consumers, whatever you choose to call them, relate to your business. So, again, I'm going to start with a definition so that we're all clear about what my starting point is. Loyalty or a loyalty program is simply a means of getting a consumer to take an action in your favour when all other competing factors are broadly similar. or equal if I could read. And so I recently booked a trip back to London, and I have, as most people do, a Qantas frequent flyer program. And if the flight's like $50 more, I'll go with Qantas irrespective of price, because everything is mostly equal, and I could do with the status points, because in some point in 30 years I'll get a free flight home. But if the flight's $500 more, then, status points, I'll take the cheaper flight. So when stuff is mostly equal, loyalty programs are great at getting people to take an action in your favour. And a quick history lesson of sorts on loyalty programs. They've kind of been around since forever, since commerce. And at the outset, loyalty was defined by, or you could at least put a cash value on it. You'd go into a store, you buy a bunch of stuff, and the store owner would give you some kind of discount if you bought enough of it. Or conversely, if you went to the same store every week for your entire life, the store owner saw you as a loyal and valued customer, again, you might access some kind of discount, and you could put a cash value on that. Now, at some point in the 1930s, a company called S&N invented the Green Shield stamp. And that was the first step change in the way that loyalty worked. Because instead of you being able to put a fixed cash value, on your loyalty, what that was worth to you, it became something redeemable. It became something where in the past this cash value was very direct. It became something indirect, because points, as I'm sure everyone in the room will agree, are almost impossible to put a value on. You don't know what they're really worth, you just know you have a bunch of them. Does that ring true? Okay, I'll crash on. And that stayed the dominant method of defining loyalty up until 1981. And in 1981, since we've already been talking about one airline, we'll talk about another one. American Airlines introduced their Advantage loyalty program. And in launching that program, they made a fantastically insightful step forward as far as loyalty goes. And, I'm not going to talk all day about loyalty. We're here to talk about digital, but just bear with me. And what that was that loyalty and the definition of loyalty through value was really not what was motivating consumer behaviour. What they realised was it was all about status, or status, depending, where you watch it on YouTube, if you're American or not, but I'm going to say status and stick with it, or data if I need to. So I'll apologise for that now. And this differentiation, so I missed that one. See how it changes. So it used to be. So this thing about status, it's all wrapped up in a phenomenon which kind of behavioural economists or psychologists will refer to as signalling. Yeah. So the redemption of points, the access of value, is not necessarily something in itself. What it is a way of me being able to signal to you that I am better in some way, or vice versa, which is the most likely outcome, in fact. So these points, they have kind of relatively little value unless I can use them as a way of letting you know that I'm better than you. And inherent in that, is that bad systems work. If I offered you 3 Amex cards, a green, a gold and a black, I'm pretty sure you would all go for the black, because that says something about you and your status in the world. And here's the bit where we get back to the power of game thinking, because you thought I was going off on one there, didn't you? But I'm going to bring it back now. So we've had, like I say, since the history of commerce, a way of defining value that was based on cash in some way. So either directly, a monetary value, indirectly, your redemption points, or implied through status systems. Now, more recently, I'm going to stay here for now. More recently, businesses such as Foursquare have sprung up with a really incredible business model And I should couch this by saying, last time I spoke at an Aimia event, I was very quick to say that Foursquare won't be around in 12 months, and that opinion hasn't changed. But I will acknowledge that they have a brilliant business model. And the brilliance of Foursquare's model is that they've managed to turn this phenomenon of signalling, of me letting you know I'm better than you, into a game. And in this game environment, we can adorn ourselves with all the accoutrements of success and status in the world. I've been here, I've gone there, I've done it this many times, aren't I cool? And it all exists within this game environment, and it's an incredibly compelling experience. And in doing so, it has completely changed. Let me back it up a step. And another reason why Foursquare works so well is that it works for everybody. So what I have behind me are 4 game player types done by a guy called Richard Bartel some time ago, not sure when. And actually there's 20 in total, but 4 of them are enduring and, really represent the wider population pretty well. So in our top right-hand corner, I don't know how to turn around, it's here, it's the same. In the top right-hand corner, we have social. I kind of think I'm going to turn around and right's left. I don't know. And so in our top right-hand corner, we have social. And social represents around about 80% of the population at large. So these are not people who play games, but the population at large, right? And this 80% of people, their requirement when they play games is that experience be lightweight, that it's easy to reciprocate, and that it's non-confrontational. That sounds a lot like Foursquare. I go somewhere, I check in, hey, I'm great, yeah? And you share it with your friends. It meets all of that requirement. 80% of the population taken care of. The Explorer. The Explorer is the guy who plays Mario Brothers and stops at every single drain, wants to go down it, can't go down that one. And they do it because there's social currency in being able to say, I'm the guy that, found Bowser's hidden palace on level 15. Great. And the Achiever, I'll come to Killer in a minute, but the Achiever is the person who wants to win. And these guys will use, these are really the guys that are using their status symbols, the badges that they collect in a platform like Foursquare, to really say something about who they are, to define themselves, to use it, if you're being a bit rude, a personality crutch perhaps. But that covers, between those 3, over 99% of the population at large. I'm going to skim past the Killers. Now, the Killers are like the Achievers in that they want to win. But they don't just want to win, they want to win, and you have to lose, and everyone has to look and, cheer for the killer. These aren't good people. They represent, like I say, a fraction of a percent. And so they kind of exist outside of this framework. But when you've got a framework that covers, 99 out of 100 people, that's pretty powerful stuff. And this all exists within a platform like Foursquare. So like I say, you've got this principle as old as commerce, where you define the value of your customers based on a tangible number. Yeah? And now it doesn't. Not so much. The way that consumers approach loyalty and status has completely changed, because the signalling is taken care of in this game environment, and it becomes compelling in a completely different way, and is defined in a way that has nothing to do with, well, what can I get for my points? What are they worth? Yeah? So, where do I want to go? I don't want to talk to Jane yet. Okay, so I've picked on 2 things here. Yeah? So the thing about the fun and the theme of fun. And loyalty, and there's a whole bunch of stuff, but we've got 20 minutes today. We haven't got the time. But why I've selected those 2 is to show you that through gaming and game mechanics, that the consumer requirement, their requirement of us as advertising businesses, is completely different. Is changed irrevocably, to the point that you could argue that a new P be added into the marketing mix, and that P being pleasure. That any interaction with you or your brand needs to be pleasurable, it needs to be fun, it needs to offer some form of value that is intangible. And I don't, for me, I'm frankly shitting myself because I don't know how to do that. And it's such a sea change in the dynamic between advertiser and consumer, something we haven't seen for such a long time, that there's great opportunity, but really it's terrifying. So I'm going to use the second half of this talk to come at this from a slightly different perspective. So, you know, I've spoken about gaming and game mechanics and quite implementation stuff about how you can use it and why it might be powerful. But if there's anyone that perhaps still feels that this isn't for them, or this won't affect their business, or that it's pie in the sky, it's transient, it will be gone, not a problem, I'm going to use the second half of the talk to take a different tack. So in 2005, a guy called Henry Jenkins published a book called Convergence Culture, and that's widely regarded as setting the framework for what has really become our definition of social media, the way that consumers collaborate, the way that they interact with one another and interact with the world, and therefore us as advertisers. And in 2011, I can't imagine an advertiser who doesn't have at least some small social media strategy that isn't woven into the fabric of their approach to their comms. So, if you agree with that, which I hope you do, you should, because I'm right. I'm going to try and do the same thing with gaming, and to show you why it should be woven into the fabric of your comms. So this lady here is a lady called Jane McGonigal, as it says, and she is the director of the Institute for the Future, and she's really bright. I mean, way brighter than me, so she says it's definitely right. And she uses games in a way that she thinks will make it as easy to save the world in real life as it is in online games. And I'm not going to talk too much about the games themselves or how they use them to save the world, but I am going to talk about the kind of people that she has identified as being gamers and what their requirement is and how they interact with the world around them. That's not me, just for the record. He's way more ginger. Okay, so this is a gamer, but not just any gamer. This is a gamer on the verge of something called an epic win. I swear I haven't made that up. It's a real thing. And the definition of an epic win is the achievement of an objective that until you achieved it, you never thought in your wildest dreams that it could possibly happen. And he said possibly possible. That would have been bad. You know, there is this sense of worth and achievement, and that is completely kind of, you know, not reciprocated anywhere in the world other than when you achieve one of these wins. And a lot of Jane, first name terms, a lot of her work is based on kind of massively multiplayer online games, World of Warcraft typically, which, irrespective of your thoughts on what that might be, it's a massive global phenomenon. I mean, we as a collective globally have dumped 5.9 million years of gameplay into that in the last 10 years, which, to give that number some context, that's the same amount of time as when primates stood up. You know, you can only look at the amount of time you put in something like World of Warcraft on an evolutionary scale. So, you know, we kind of laugh at level 12 orcs, but, you know, these dudes are going to rule the world. So, the reason why these massive multiplayer games, World of Warcraft, are so compelling, and so compelling to the people that play them, and the outputs that we get as a consequence of the people that play them, Jane thinks we can harness. And, you know, as you read down these, this is a gameplay scenario, but if you think about their application to the real world and how they affect these people, you know, you enter the world and there is a whole bunch of people who are willing to trust you with a really important task. Generally, that important task is to save the human race or save the planet. You know, that's not to be sniffed at. But yet the scale of the task is always really accurately matched to your current skill set. And that's the thing about the epic win. It's really tough, but not impossible, as long as you knuckle down and put it in the graft. There are a lot of collaborators to work with. You know, you feel inspired that you're involved in such an important story. And there's the distribution of continuous feedback. You know, so I go and kill some... Well, I don't, but you might go and kill some boss orc person, and suddenly you're plus 10 dexterity and plus 12 strength. You get this continuous feedback, and to those guys, that's really valuable. And it's really difficult to offer similar feedback, a similar depth of feedback in the real world. You know, I'm not going to get off stage and be +4 speaking. You know, it doesn't work like that. And so all of these conditions in unison, they create an environment in which people can collaborate really easy and solve problems. The guys at the Institute for the Future would contend that the only problem with that is that unfortunately they're solving problems in worlds that don't exist. So I'm going to give you a number here, 10,000, and it's an interesting number for three reasons. The first one is that 10,000 is the number of hours that the average American kid will spend in school as long as they stay until they graduate high school. 10,000 hours is also the average number of hours that a kid will spend playing games up until the age of 21 in a developed nation. And so they're spending as much time playing games as they are in school, which is, if you're a parent, possibly frightening, but I would say that's a really good thing. And the third one, which I'm sure a lot of you would have sprung to mind immediately, being very well-read advertising professionals, is Malcolm Gladwell's 10,000 hour rule. If you spend 10,000 hours on a task, that you invest that time to become good at a particular thing, is that 10,000 hours is the amount of time you need to invest in it to become world-class, to become a virtuoso, if you will. I mean, there are a bunch of other conditions around the side of that, but really, if you invest the time, you'll get really good. But the thing is, what do they get really good at? What characterises someone who's really good at gaming? Well, actually, there's a bunch of real-world characteristics, stuff that exists, that is something within those individuals, the qualities that they exhibit as people. And they revolve around these four tenets. So the first one, social fabric. These individuals who invested all that time in gaming, online gaming, believe in a really, really tight social fabric. They are quick to build relationships, they collaborate without ego, they have an objective in mind, and they band together to achieve it in the most effective manner. Secondly, and this is not my use of language, I hasten to add, I would never refer to anyone as an urgent optimist. That's the sort of thing that I see in a presentation, I want to run a mile. This is the Institute for the Future's language, so I'm going to stick with it. So urgent optimism is the desire to act quickly and decisively in a manner that you think will be successful, even if you think that the challenge is almost insurmountable. Goes back to this concept of the epic win, right? Blissful productivity is the sense that people are more motivated to work hard in an online game than they are to just relax in real life. So I've been at school, I've been at work all day. I'm very happy to go home and invest 6, 7, 8 hours in World of Warcraft rather than sit on my arse and watch the footy, because of this concept of blissful productivity. I achieve something and I get the feedback and all of those conditions that I already spoke about that make that experience rewarding. And then finally, epic meaning. Those gamers love the word epic. And this is the sense of occasion. I'm solving problems on a planetary scale. I'm involved in a mythology, something which is bigger than me, that I can stick my name to and say how, that I achieved that. And these four conditions in unison, again, not my language, give us a group of people, and I say a group of people, this is 500 million people who are bona fide gamers. And these are superpowered, hopeful individuals. People who individually believe that they can affect change on a global scale. Now, that doesn't sound like anyone I know. The people I know don't think they can affect any sort of change. They're scared of the world in many ways. But why do I tell you this? Why have I used this section of the talk to talk about the work that's being done by the Institute for the Future? Well, here's the reason. If we agree that this is what 500 million people do, that these are the qualities, characteristics, skills that imbue their lives, and that's how they make sense of the world, then when they grow up, and many of them already are, when they grow up, we need to figure out a way that's best to communicate with them on their terms, to meet their requirement of us. And so therefore my proposition to you guys is that having gamification thinking throughout the fabric of your own media and marketing behaviour is definitely the way forward, if not today, but certainly in the next couple of years. Thanks for listening, guys.
Thanks, Rob.